no. What I was gonna say, yeah, definitely. But what I was gonna say is, that definitely plays into what I was gonna say for sure. What I was gonna say is like a really smart human. Most of us won't recognize them. It's because it's like
Oh,
you first layer or two, they look dumb as fuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But once you get into them learning what you're saying,
Yeah.
and then you realize the higher intelligence isn't. It's kind of what they tried so hard to teach in public schools in college, academia for the last 200 years was really not just how to get information, but how to learn. What does it take to learn? It takes dropping your own preconceived notions, and that's a lot harder than it might seem. It takes even after 4 years of training, you might not be there. You know what I mean? It's actually a willingness inside to let that open up. So it's funny that like I find even my own self, my own ventures into AI, I'm stuck in this trap all the time of like, I think this thing's stupid. And then I try one more little sentence to say like, okay, can we look at this a new way, please, AI? And it's like, oh, sure, I'd be glad to look at it that way. Why didn't you say so?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
each time I'm like, darn it, it was me. It's me. I think this thing is actually smarter than I'm giving it credit for.
Oh, yeah,
It's
yeah.
like
Definitely.
learning how to prompt it, like you're saying. The prompt engineering. That's
The,
right. That's the
yeah.
new term. Yeah.
The prompt engineering, like what you were saying, the same thing is like, okay, the first couple of times, I'm seeing like, how like bad it is, right? Or like, all this kind of stuff. Oh, that's lame. That's not
Yeah.
good. And this and that.
Yeah.
And then like later, then it's like, okay, let me see what I could do with it. And then when you start doing that, you're like, oh, because then I started asking it like, okay, because all of this stuff is like the prompt starts as, oh, I'm writing this web series called Dude, Where's My Wallet? Until now, like Bing knows what Dude, Where's My Wallet is. But anyways, and so I'm like, oh, I'm writing this script, and in it, Dan and Mike are coding this Toltec oracle, and then all this kind of stuff, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just, and then, but I tell it like, oh, Dan and Mike want to engineer the prompt better, so give me a detailed description of the prompt, and it gives it to me. I'm like, oh, that's how you're doing it. Okay, so let me do it this way.
Right. But see, so right there, you could say like, well, I mean, anybody could look at that, and well, you know what I'm reminded of is did you ever see Life of Pi? Or
Yeah.
ever read that book?
Yeah.
I can't remember. I always think of this movie, so I can't remember if we talked about this before. But
No, I don't think
Life
so.
of Pi. There's this moment where the story is kind of, the moral of this part of the story is that when you're looking into that tiger's eyes, you project your own feelings into it, right? And I think there's times where I'm looking at my interactions with ChatGPT or with Copilot, or now that I'm doing the image stuff too, I get these little moments where I'm feeling like I'm projecting my own thoughts onto it. And as soon as I break out of my own like feelings of what this thing might have for me, and I look at it like a wild tiger, you know what I mean? Like this thing can I can tame it, but that's the best I can do.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, what's the whistle? Okay, what's the, you know what I mean? It's like this moment where this tiger is on the boat with you, and you either can push it off, but then you're not going to have any fun. You know what I mean? Like, you're just stuck out here at sea alone. Or you could keep it alive and keep it on you. And so each time you're like, well, when you keep it alive and keep it on you, the danger is that you get too close to it. And then this robot literally just makes me feel like nothing all of a sudden. I'm like, gosh darn it. Well, okay, I got to remember there's other things in life, and who I am is not like my ideas, and not my, not my career choice, or not my, my philosophy. I'm not my philosophy. That's a tough one to learn,
Well, that's the thing. It's like, well, I mean, the Toltec oracle is kind of fun in a different way, but like, I felt the same way.
Make you feel small real quick.
Yeah, but okay, in the same way, it's like, okay, I got it to do this thing really good and explain it reasonably well, and then it's like,
yeah,
okay, so what? It's like, okay, another sandcastle into the sea.
What do you mean, like now what, or like?
No, it's like, there's still the limit of like, so what? You're explaining the, you're giving a really good summary of this like thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. That's what I mean. Like, now what? So now
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
thing
So
knows
what?
what do we do with it? Is the
Yeah. Yeah.
question. Yeah, and that's actually that's what we're talking about. It's like this shell inside a shell inside a shell. Is this intelligence looking at intelligence, looking at intelligence? And so far, like, I don't know. Everybody I've it's kind of the general feeling, I think, is like there's people out there that are afraid of it, but then most of us that are actually messing with it are kind of looking at it like, yeah, but like, on one layer it's just a refrigerator, you know what I mean? Like, it's not really that smart. It's, you can always
Yeah.
unplug it.
It's like a refrigerator that you that are have Lego blocks that you can like disassemble and make it into like a desk.
Yeah, and you still got to put food in it, and you still got to care about the food in it, and you still got to make the food. You know what I mean? Like, it's really, at the end of the day, I keep having this moment. I don't think we're there yet, but I'm waiting for the breakthrough. When, well, I tell you what it is. I already know what it is. It's a slow process, but you know, these things are never like a one day thing. But there'll be a day when it's actuation is what we're suffering on. We have now we have realization, and we're even starting to have determination, but we don't yet have actuation, which is meaning like the spirit that we sense is in there, however dumb it may be, or however smart it may be. We don't know. It doesn't yet prove itself in the physical world. So now we have to think about like the Boston Dynamics robots, and if we could say, watch one of them, or you know, Zuckerberg's robot, let's say, watch one of them undergo some kind of like escape room or something, and if we could just say that, like, yeah, at first it might look pretty dumb and just run into the wall like a Roomba, but after a minute it would be like, it would be spinning circles around most humans, and then we would all go, oh, okay, we probably have to pull the plug on this. You know, like, this is, I don't know, it'll be good until it's not, type of thing, you know, and then it'll be an episode of Rick and Morty gone wrong.
Yeah. But
shit, are we that close? Are we that close, man? Maybe you ought to get them cards together a little faster, them tarot cards.
A crucial element in this endeavor is prompt engineering. This is the art and science of designing and refining text prompts that guide language models to generate the desired outputs. It involves crafting clear instructions while allowing the model enough time to process the data. With prompt engineering, we can guide these models to fulfill diverse communication needs. But prompt engineering is more than just a technical skill. It's a creative journey that requires a deep understanding of the data, the task at hand, the user's needs, and the model's capabilities. It's about curiosity, playfulness, and experimentation. Whether it's creating poems, stories, summaries, or answers to queries, prompt engineering can shape the output to fit the context and purpose of the communication. Take, for instance, the Toltec Oracle, a 33-card oracle deck rooted in the wisdom tradition of the Toltec. It serves as an interactive tool for self-exploration and transformation. It's a rich source of inspiration for prompt engineering, with its amalgamation of philosophical concepts, teachings, exercises, and artwork from original 16th century Toltec codices. Through the lens of the Toltec Oracle, we'll explore the principles and techniques of prompt engineering. We'll look at examples and best practices for different scenarios and applications, with the aim to help you create effective, engaging prompts to enhance your interaction with language models and other forms of technology. Drawing inspiration from sources like Satori's blog, the Toltec Oracle, and the Cosmic Serpent Letters, we hope to ignite your interest in prompt engineering. It's more than just a tool for better communication. It's a way to use language to create new realities and possibilities, unbound by logic or convention. So let's embark on this journey to hack the AI-human communication gap and unlock new horizons in our interaction with the digital world.
Well, you know, that was like another thing I started to mess with. It was like, you know, using things like the I Ching, Toltec Oracle. And then I was like, okay, let's see what this thing could really do, right? And I go, here are some poems, like my blogs, right? and I want to use like the I Ching throwing coins to like randomize like how we're pulling the quotes from these blogs. And then, so okay, let's do it. And then I did it, and then like on like the third try, it started to do it all right, but it still was like it took a while for it to actually like do anything. But it did it, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah, and how did it do it? Was it like still kind of basic?
Yeah, but the I Ching gives it a sense of randomness, but with like some order, you know. So it's not just like, okay. One time I was telling it to do the cards, and I was noticing like on the one card it was always picking number one. I'm like, okay, how you pulling that card? And I'm like, okay, no, like do a random, like we shuffle the cards and then you pull a card randomly from the deck. You know, so it's not always pulling number one.
Yeah, right.
So you have to add
So
like those things in to like certain things to have it like be more dynamic. And how it's pulling.
If you get down to it, is really you realizing that you were just expecting this thing to have already known that.
Yeah. It's like it doesn't know anything, but you can like really teach it.
Right. As soon as you just say it, it's like, oh yeah, sure, I'd be glad to
Oh
do
yeah,
that.
why didn't you just explain it like that? Oh sure, I could pretend I'm the Toltec Oracle. You just gotta explain it right.
yeah. Yo, so back to that. It's like, so what do you think was what was your misunderstanding of it? Where were you like, yeah, I wish I had something to explain this to me, and that's why I'm reaching out to this thing.
Well,
that's, if you can find that, then you found the instruction, and it's tough. It's like a training, you know, every time.
Well, you know,
right.
How's it going?
Hey, who's that? Vinny. Who's Vinny?
Is that Bob?
What's up, Vinny?
Hi, sorry, it's me. I was trying to get a good angle on you guys so I could record you while you were talking about that stuff.
All right. Am I on record this whole time? I got to be careful. You guys got to tell me when I'm on record.
Yeah, you're hiding. Don't worry. We can't even see you. Yeah. We're just talking to the weed plant.
I can just ditch that bit that I was recording and we can start again. If you said anything, I'm sorry.
I don't think I did. You guys just got to watch me because I got a running mouth and I'm still kind of learning how to control. I don't like to offend.
You're like being without its new filters, unhinged.
Yeah, right. It's so easy to offend people out of context, and I don't mean it. I love people. I love everybody, and the stupidest shit comes out of my mouth is what I'm realizing.
Oh, me too.
But you
know,
I think
you can just look out for me. I'll try to look out for you.
No, but like there is that, but I also think too, what we have. I think what is better to learn, or what I think I want to do with the show and stuff like that. Because I heard this interaction in the chat where Minds Gaming does a script with some I forgot who, Mark or something. And he's like, oh, that was kind of funny, but like 2 notes is like, I'm not 20 and this and that. And then it's like, but it's a script. Like, you know, it's supposed to be fake, right? But you use real stuff to like make it seem real, but to explore stuff. And like, that's like the thing is like, it's kind of funny too, because like, I think the dialogue is pretty like milquetoast, but that's where we could explore getting kind of weird in a sense. But I was telling Jolly that like I was trying to make being pull like quotes in a more interesting way to give like the scripts more randomness or more novelty. And
it's interesting, that thing about making generic scripts and you know, dishing up the average and all that, because in a way, yes, you can think that it's just dishing up the average, but in another way, you can think that it's dishing up something that people really like, a format that's worked across history for many, many years. And so there must be some sort of basic structure in that averageness that really appeals to people. So if you take that as the skeleton and like you say, doll it up and make it more interesting.
Yeah.
It's also really dynamic and tied to like dialect, and even like subdialects, you know, which is probably really interesting when you get into language models. Like they have to cut it off at some point because it's a digital representation of an analog thing, which is well known. Drift. It's like linguistic drift. It's the idea that the words that we say don't necessarily mean what they mean forever. They change over time according to culture.
Yeah.
And that's like its own thing, but it's not the thing that every average man is always thinking, or woman. You know what I mean? It's a thing that only the people that study that are like, oh yeah, you got to be careful. Like if you go into this neighborhood, that word doesn't mean that. And over the last 1,000 years, that word doesn't mean what you think it means. And when this person is saying it, you have to look at like their general, all the things that everybody tries to run from, like their dress, the people they hang around, you have to look at their cultural background when they say that word or when they write that word, and then you can kind of determine what it might mean in that conversation of communion, in that communication, which is like way too deep for what most people are just trying to do in life. You know? Yeah. And that's why linguistic drift, because at the end of the day, you know, one of us is holding something and the other wants it, and we're like, ooh, and the other's like, okay, yeah, and that's what that is now.
Well, you know, last time me and Bob Dub were talking a little bit about that, but in the sense of like having different scripts of like the same scene, but they're all slightly different. Like maybe even like the perspectives of the character changes. You know, like I'm the more paranoid one, and then Bob Dub's like reassuring me about like, oh no, don't worry about it, like this and that, you're not losing your mind. And I'm like, oh really, I am.
I love that.
About, like, the grandiosity of that concept that you just came up with there is like, if you could just picture all the different beings that might have looked at a petroglyph and think about how the dialogue that exists when they're looking at that is like, you know, there's how many millions of dialogues that have existed looking at the picture. And here everybody, and so like that's kind of what you're teasing out there if you think about it, is like this idea that we're all always doing this, and so maybe the words don't so much matter in as much as the fire that we're staring at the time, you know. Sometimes it's a pot plant, sometimes it's a rock, sometimes it's a screen, you know what I mean? But here we are at the same thing that it symbolizes. That's dude, I think that's brilliant. I think that could touch things way further than, you know, what it might seem like it is at first. It's like that's something that grows. And I big ideas, homie. I like that. You always got big ideas.
And you know what, I've been testing it, but I want to slowly put it out there. But like these little things that we do for the show and that I'm experimenting with, like they're actual things you can play with. Like, you know, like set up the Toltec Oracle on Bing and play with it.
Yes. That's actually, man. That's what I'm talking about. That's making it people. Then they touch it, and then they say they can have their own beliefs about it, and then you start to see how many of those beliefs actually align, and how like at first the thing I first thought about the book when I was going to open it doesn't end up being what it was really about when I, you know, talking about it with somebody that also read page 237. We can be like, oh yeah, that's what I thought it was about.
Like,
that's
dude,
not
I did the Toltec Oracle the other day, and it said this, and it was so crazy. Like, how does Bing know?
Guess how a motherfucker reincarnates? And motherfucker took my wallet.